The New York Times is reporting right now that a large group of Democrats in the House and the Senate are telling the president they will abandon him on this Affordable Care Act thing and join Republicans in backing a proposed law, a bill, that would allow people to keep their junkie insurance even though it does not comply with the law, even though it would undermine the pools that are being put together. This proves the point I've been making all along here. The Democrats are fraidy cats, spineless, gutless, wimpy cowards who simply sit there and say, oh, the Republicans are beating us in the talking point war. Oh, no. What they ought to be doing is being ferocious and stand up and say, these are crap policies. They need to be replaced with proper policies. If we need to make adjustments, we've got to do some control of the prices these health insurance companies are charging, bring the cost of these policies down so that they can be affordable to the people who need to buy them. That would be a ferocious approach. That would be a populist approach. That would be a Democratic Party approach. But no, today's Democratic Party, oh no, we got to run away. It really makes me sick watching these people. It really does. This is a pathetic example of a political party being cowed, being bullied. I mean, it's astounding to watch. Mark in Seattle. Hello.
Hey, Norm, it's Mark Taylor-Canfield. How you doing?
Hey, Mark. Good evening.
Hey, I'm glad you mentioned the Huffington Post because I have a blog over there, but I wanted to give you a quick factoid. Do you know who's actually managing the Washington State food stamp program?
Who's managing the Washington State food stamp?
I have no idea.
I'll let John Boner answer that one for me.
I have no idea.
It's a guy whose name has been around for over a century now, J.P. Morgan Chase.
Really?
Yes, so don't tell me that socialism doesn't work out quite well for the corporations.
I just think that's bull.
But the reason I called him is because I need to really update your audience on the Washington State elections because I believe I was on last week talking about the Occupy candidate, and there's a big update on that. When I interviewed her actually on election night, Kashama Sawant is her name, she had already conceded the race, and she tweeted that her opponent, incumbent Richard Conlon, could now continue to collect his paychecks from the city, but as of today, she's now leading by a total of 41 votes.
Is she a socialist by any chance?
She is a socialist. And a few days ago, she was behind by 1,200 votes. She had already conceded the election, but all of a sudden, the King County Elections Commission is saying that, she's ahead, and there's about 60,000 votes left to count just in King County, and the trend is actually in her favor. So it's kind of funny that she was waxing philosophical about what she learned during the election and talking about future campaigns when she's actually in the lead at this point. And so one of the lessons she may have learned is, a candidate shouldn't concede until all of the votes are counted.
The Democratic candidate for the Attorney General race in Virginia, after 2.2 million votes plus were cast, he's up by 164 votes.
Hello.
You got to wait until all the votes are counted, especially in these local small elections.
There could be a recount, that's for sure, but she's definitely shocked all of the political Seattle, even though it's a very liberal place, very progressive, it's also, headquarters for Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Boeing, Starbucks. So
that's right. It's
very corporate. So the fact that she was able to raise $30,000 and that her major platform campaign issue was $15 an hour minimum wage, it's pretty shocking to most of the political pundits.
How is the CTAC minimum wage vote going? Isn't that one separated by 20 votes or something?
It's very close right now. Actually, I just looked at that, and let's see what it's saying. It's saying that it's close, but it looks like it's trending towards the yes at this point.
And that is to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour.
Exactly. I think, I'm just going to make a prediction here. I'll put my reputation on the line. I think it's going to pass. And that was one of Kashama Sawant's major platform issues. So if she wins the Seattle City Council election, that's going to change a lot, too. And also, we're going district now. The voters, looks like they're going to approve districting, which means that you have to actually come from the neighborhood you represent now.
Instead of an at-large thing where you just elected from a large city area.
Right. In fact, the city council positions are considered nonpartisan, but, there's no Republican anywhere near. Grace, you don't even.
Well, it would be nice to have real Democrats, and not corporate Democrats in these cities where there are no Republicans. Mark, I got to leave it there, but I do appreciate the update. And I got an email this morning to Norm at normandgoldman.com about that race. And yes, she is a socialist, a declared socialist, and she's winning a city council race in Seattle. So there you go. Put that one in your pipe and consider it. We're coming right back with you where justice is served. The Norm and Goldman Show. When the president was pushing this thing that I don't even like, this Affordable Care Act, which is nothing but corporate welfare, it's just that, it's a deal with the devil. It's a deal with the giant health insurance companies. It's a deal with the pharmaceutical companies. That's why the thing got through Congress. The only reason it got through Congress, because the insurance companies, the health insurance companies, and the drug companies, the pharmaceutical companies, which own the Democrats and the Republicans in the House and the Senate, they said, yeah, let it through. Let it through. It's okay. And right now, while the Republicans are, their heads are popping off and they're screaming and yelling and vomiting up pea soup about, oh, it's so terrible, socialism, it don't work. You're not hearing a word, not a sound from the health insurance companies or the drug companies. They love this thing. It's billions of dollars of government money into their pockets. Why wouldn't they love it? That's why the thing got through. It is all about corporations and their money and their power. Now, a little more than 100 years ago, we were in very similar positions that we are now. There was basically one oil company called Standard Oil, owned by a fellow named Rockefeller. Standard Oil. There was basically a small group of banks, headed by J.P. Morgan, right? There was a guy. Now it's J.P. Morgan Chase. There was a guy, J.P. Morgan. He was the head of the banks. There were only a few of them. The railroads were very powerful in those days, concentrated in just the hands of a very small select group. The coal companies, right? The iron and steel companies, Carnegie. I mean, all of the giant enterprises of those days, right around 1900, right? The 1890s. I mean, the economy was in the stranglehold of just a few really powerful and wealthy corporate interests owned by a few men. And the public was really upset about it. There was a president, Republican, a fellow named William McKinley, who was owned and operated by those same corporate interests. Now, sadly, even though if I were around then, I would have thought the guy was awful, he was assassinated in 1901. President William McKinley was assassinated in 1901, shortly after he was reelected. He was originally elected 1896, reelected in 1900, and then he was assassinated in 1901. Well, his vice president was Theodore Roosevelt. And because the president was assassinated, William McKinley, Theodore Roosevelt, the vice president, became president. And Theodore Roosevelt said, you know what? I am going to break up all of these trusts. That's what they were called. It was called trust busting. President Theodore Roosevelt went on a trust busting binge. And Standard Oil became ESSO, E-S-S-O, which now we know as Exxon. Standard Oil was busted up into multiple companies. There was Standard Oil of Ohio. All of a sudden, there's Standard Oils of all these different things. Theodore Roosevelt rose to the occasion. He was a man for his time, and he busted up a lot of these monopolistic trusts. Today, we don't have that. There is no Theodore Roosevelt of our time. And even though the banks and Wall Street stole all the money, trashed the economy, brought us all a new depression 5 years ago, they're doing better than ever now. They're even bigger now. They're even more too big to fail than they were before. And there's no Theodore Roosevelt on the horizon. I'm sorry, President Obama is just another get-along-to-go-along corporatist. That is just the simple truth. And the Republican Party and the Democratic Party are united in protecting corporate interests. I'll give you an example. In Arkansas, in a nice suburban residential area in Arkansas, Exxon, Standard Oil, had a pipe burst, and oil spilled out of this pipeline. Most of the people in that neighborhood didn't even know there was a pipeline there until it exploded and spilled many, many barrels of oil, 20,000 or more barrels of oil destroyed this little cul-de-sac-y subdivision in a very suburban, very nice woodsy area in Arkansas. Well, the area is devastated now. The people they moved out. You can't live in the middle of all that oil. It's just flowing down the streets. It just trashed everything. Well, federal regulators, they were relentless today. They were ferocious. They really stood up to Exxon. They imposed a fine of $2.6 million. That's it, with an M. $2.6 million as a fine to Exxon.
Hello.
Now that, I could pull a penny out of my pocket and give it to you. I could hand you a penny. A penny to me is about $2.6 million to Exxon. Maybe even less. This is what I'm talking about. I told you I had corporate news for you, and here is some of it. Exxon, which destroyed the town, is called Mayflower. If you want to look it up, Mayflower, Arkansas. Exxon was fined $2.6 million. They laugh at that. That's like their profits for 5 minutes, if that. Exxon's making $36 billion a quarter. I mean, Exxon's making unbelievable profits. $2.6 million for destroying an area. Oh, and they're going to have to pay a few million more to buy up the neighborhood. This is a joke. It's a joke. The message to Exxon is, you own our political system and you have nothing to fear. You get value for your purchase. Exxon gets real value for their purchase. Let me give you another example. American Airlines and U.S. Airways have wanted to merge for a long time. Well, they've just gotten the blessing of the United States government. American Airlines and U.S. Airways will indeed merge. That means Delta, United, the new American, right, with U.S. Airways absorbed into it, Delta, United, American, and Southwest, those 4 airlines will control 70%, just under 3/4 of our American domestic air traffic. Delta, United, American, and Southwest. 4 huge airlines, 7 out of 10 domestic passengers, one of those. That ain't a functioning free market capitalist system. That ain't a functioning system. What that is a monopolized oligarchy. In the cell phone industry, you've got 4 big players: Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, and T-Mobile. And by the way, T-Mobile wanted to merge with AT&T to give you only 3, and those 4 companies control 70% of the cell phone market in the United States. And 2 of them wanted to merge, and even this government, which is owned and operated by these guys, said, no, we can't allow that. It's too much. So now we see where the antitrust laws have gone, into the toilet. And the irreducible minimum, we now know, is 4. The federal government, and incidentally, the Obama administration has enforced the antitrust laws more than any administration in my lifetime. And this is what we get. The message is clear. In the air traveling business, right, the airline industry, cell phone industry, 4 companies is the littlest we'll allow. That's it. We'll allow 4 giant mega companies in every market segment. There is no Theodore Roosevelt these days. I can't start an airline. If I wanted to compete with Southwest or American or Delta, United, how can I start an airline? Do you know how many billions of dollars it would take for me? The barriers to entry in that market are insurmountable. Same thing for a cell phone company. Same thing for a bank, oil company. Think about any of the sectors of this economy. How can anybody compete with these guys? They are entrenched. And there is no Theodore Roosevelt today to stand up and say, this is wrong, and we're going to break you up. 100 plus years ago, 110 years ago, Theodore Roosevelt happened to come on the scene. He was the right man for his time, and he did the job. Now, it's all been reassembled. It's like 1898 all over again. And there is no Theodore Roosevelt today. And I'm sorry, President Obama, you're just another get-along-to-go-along corporatist, as is the rest of the Democratic Party. And the Democrats and Republicans can play World Wrestling Federation all they want and toss each other around the ring and slam each other's head into the turnbuckle and make it look like there is a real competition here. But they are both united in not challenging corporate power. They are both united in taking whopping amounts of corporate money, sticking it in their pockets, and moving along. And yes, there are differences on the social issues, abortion and marriage equality and all, but on the money issues, they are the same. And it pains me to say that, because my Democratic Party should not be that way. 1-888-321-6001. It's you and me the rest of the way. 1-888-321-6001 at the place where justice is always served. The Norman Goldman Show.
Norman.
How do you get Dick Cheney to shut up? Make him vice president again. That's the only way it's ever going to happen.
This is the Norman Goldman Show.
The demographics are changing. It's not a traditional America anymore.